and gentlemen, the case that came from the government bench seems really strong, but if you look deep into the argument, it's extremely empty. Because we would agree that the status quo isn't perfect, that China and Japan might not shaking their hands and be an extremely amicable relationship. But this debate has to come down to a comparison. Which side creates more peace and which side aggravates more peace under the side of affirmative? Because they never answer how by having military, suddenly you are able to convince China to negotiate with Japan. How are you able to convince ISIS or North Korea when they have so much antipathy toward Japan currently? We have to understand when the military in of itself is the very weapon that massacred China in World War II, it doesn't really make any sense for us to simply believe that simply China will suddenly negotiate with Japan in any sphere. We agree that status quo is not perfect, but it is still a preferable world that we want to live in under the side of opposition. So in my speech, I'll be analyzing to mainly on this issue about which side better incorporates the principle of national security, achieving peace as the outcome. So I have three responses to engage to the report that came from the government bench. So their main case is that Japan principally should preemptively engage within China and other countries. I'll take a few if you have them.
Okay, so while world peace is a wonderful ideal, shouldn't the ultimate responsibility of the Japanese government to first and foremost protect the Japanese people from harm?
Okay, that last thing we want to issue, right? Like their main case is that Japan should principally save these Japanese citizens in and of itself. We have three responses. Firstly, they do protect the Japanese citizens under status quo. That's what we call self-defense force, which actually does protect when Japan is being attacked in any scenario. So the question then becomes, why do you need to extend to military force to this extent when China and North Korea simply fears military force in and of itself in the first place? They never answered that question. But secondly, they told us that reciprocity is something that is extremely important. We agree. That's why reciprocity is already existing under status quo. The self-defense force actually do contribute in many ways to reciprocity relationship under status quo. In 1993, when self-defense force actually contributed in the case of Mozambique, or in 2005 when they actually contributed to Indonesia, the reciprocity relationship does happen under status quo. That's why we have to understand that Japan and the United States is in a good relationship, and it is insufficient for the side of primitive to simply tell us that the United States will simply abandon these Japan at all situations. The only response coming from the side of primitive is two things. They told us, number one, that the United States is already withdrawing from Japan, and that's something that's extremely problematic. But that doesn't really prove the very fact, and that's a complete lie, because Japan and the United States already have different kinds of military within Okinawa, within different kinds of Southeast Asian countries in the itself. But their concern is that Trump and Bernie Sanders is going to be elected. Trump and Bernie Sanders, by fact, doesn't really actually proclaim the very fact that they are going to abandon Japan as a military in of itself. They've only said that military in itself is bad in the Middle East. That's a complete lie, again, that came from the side of primitive. Deputy Prime Minister simply said that binary relationship is something important, but they never really tell us why binary relationship is something that's extremely important. The fact of the matter is, they need to tell us why the United States is insufficient to be able to protect Japan, because we think that the relationship and the reciprocal relationship that we have currently within Japan and the United States is something that's already fulfilled the obligation in itself. But thirdly, let's engage the best case scenario. Even if we were to concede that the United States isn't going to help Japan, we think that security is contingent upon the relationship that you have currently within the countries around Japan in of itself. And that nice thing we want to this very issue of what exactly is the action that China will take in of itself. We think that on their side of primitive, when you create a military force, which is actively going to participate within fighting against different kinds of war, you create this incentive for China to fear the very fact of Japan. Because as a matter of fact, China will now use a rhetoric as to we are going to unify our country, and Japan has only attempted to regret what it has done in World War II, because the very existence of military troops currently at the primitive bench proves the very fact that they actually are willing to fight against China in of itself. We agree that maybe not all people would believe that scenario, but at the very same time, China and Chinese people, Xi Jinping will actually use it as a rhetoric to be able to control the people on the ground, and that's something that's extremely problematic. In that scenario, you create a situation where you shift all the mentality of Chinese people to shift it to simply not actually opting to any diplomatic negotiation within a primitive bench. This is extremely problematic, because we think that negotiation of itself is the very first step for you to be able to achieve any kind of peacekeeping, peace and security in any scenario. Your side house, you simply create an incentive for North Korea, for ISIS, for China and of itself to simply destroy all kinds of incentive to negotiate. We think there is no analysis that was provided from the primitive bench as to how exactly will this negotiation happen in of itself. We would agree that status quo is not perfect, but as a matter of fact, status quo negotiation has been proceeding. The very fact that China and Japan has agreed to actually impose sanctions to North Korea is the very fact that we actually need to understand the negotiation is happening every single day. It is not happening it's not not having like one single day, like it's not like a short-term benefit, but in long spectrum, we're still able to achieve benefits because negotiation does happen. We think that something is extremely important. But even if we were to engage to the best case, the fact that Japan in of itself is something that will be threatened under status quo, we think that principally as Japan, when the Constitution Article 9 simply prohibits Japan to use any kind of military, you simply create a scenario where the Constitution in of itself is completely neglected. You simply create a scenario where China in of itself is being able to attack Japan. That's something that's extremely detrimental. We need to understand that status quo is the preferable better society to be able to achieve. We're extremely proud to oppose.